Hi, this is Steve, and I'm going to demonstrate our utility tracker for you. The utility tracker is targeted for condos, co-ops, and homeowners associations, to their residents, the management, and the boards of directors. The benefits of the utility tracker app are that, one, you can see trends, which will help in the budgeting process. You can detect outliers, which, for example, if there's an anomaly in the water usage, it could indicate a leak, or, for example, in electricity, it could indicate a theft of electricity. If you've installed energy-saving improvements, you can see the benefit over time. And having reports on the utility usage gives it visibility and insight into all of the stakeholders, which they don't necessarily have. Also, the stakeholders change over time. For example, well, all of them, the residents, the boards of directors, and even the management might change over time. So this gives continuity to all of them. And it gives you a chronological record of usage and improvements. The utility tracker app comes with 4 files. The utility tracker itself, which is a macro-enabled Excel workbook, and 3 regular Excel workbooks, which are used to store the data and reports. When you open the utility tracker app, you come to the Setup tab in the macro-enabled workbook. And before you click Start, it's important to select the utility type that you want to deal with in this session. Right now, gas is selected. We'll click on the drop down and we'll start off with electricity. And then you click Start. You can see on the top that the user form is labeled Control Panel for Electricity. And this is a worksheet where data has already been entered. And the example name for the property is My Condo. So we don't have to enter the property name. And the 2 areas that you spend the most time when you're entering data are location management and data entry. So when you go to manage location, you get locations electricity. That's you can see that's the name of this user form. And you can either add a location or modify location. So you can see here that we've already got 3 locations. We called room 1, room 2, and room 3. Those are the display names. And in the data sheets, those will be in the data sheet, that'll be the name of the tabs associated with each set of data. And if you select one, you can edit it, or you could possibly delete it by clicking on Delete Location. But we won't do that now. So we'll go back to, and you can add a location. In other words, when you're first starting out and data entering, you have to define your location. So this is the place that you add location. So what's a location? Really has to do with where the meters are located, and or what you consider the meters to be for. In other words, for example, in terms of water, it might be irrigation, fire lines, cooling water, or domestic water. In terms of electricity, it might be particular buildings. So that's where you would define the locations. We'll go back to the control panel, and here's where you enter data. So before entering data, you have to select the location. Select the location, and now so this has to do with when you get a bill for electricity. For example, you enter the start date here, the end date, the usage, and electricity has a demand, usually a demand item, which has to do with the peak usage over the period. And you enter the meter ID. This will default to the last meter that was used for this location. The reason that you enter meter IDs when you enter the data is that the meters, the utility company will every so often will change the meter and it'll have a different number associated with the same location. Like my experience in the condo that I live in has been every maybe every 3 or 4 years they change the meter. On the right side, you can enter an event. For electricity, an event might be that you installed a energy-saving device or improvement on a certain date. So you would just enter the date and give a description of brief description of what you did. So in the future, people will be able to look back at this and say, this is when we did that. And we can see, if we look at the reports, the effect that that had. Going back to the control panel, the other main command item is the dashboard. What happens is when you click the dashboard, all of the data that has been entered from day one into the application is used to create a report. So the report is always created with all of the data, including the newly entered data. And when you click dashboard, it generates the report, and we get a pop-up that says that the dashboard has been updated. So we'll just click OK, and we're going to exit the application. This is the data electricity workbook. And at the bottom, you can see that there are several tabs. We have a tab here for room 1, room 2, and room 3. Those are the locations that we had. And each one, if we go to one of them, each one has data that was entered. And you can see that the headers, I'll read them to you, they may be a little bit small. Start date, end date, usage, demand, meter, billing period, days in the billing period, and the meter that was used. And similarly for room 2 and room 3, we have additional data. Then there's a worksheet called Consolidated, which was created by the Tracker Utility app, which merges all of the data from room 1 and room 2 and room 3 into one table. It started with room 1, presuming that was entered first, and then it appended rooms 2 and 3 to the end. And you don't have to worry about entering the data in chronological order, because the consolidated table is always sorted by date each time it's regenerated. So this is regenerated every time the dashboard is recreated. And on the locations tab, we just have a list of the locations. Every time a location gets added, this is where it's stored and remembered. And this is the dashboard tab, the report tab, which has all the good information. So on the dashboard tab, we have 2 tables, and these are what are called pivot tables. They're very helpful in getting insight into the data. And we have 2 pivot tables. The top one is for usage. In other words, how much electricity was used in a given month or year. And the bottom one is for demand, and that's the peak usage. The major part of your utility bill is really the regular usage that's having to do with the top pivot table. So what can we do with the pivot table to give us insights? Okay, so first of all, we can see that we have usage by month. And why is that important? Well, you find out that utility usage, for the most part, is seasonal. In other words, for electricity, you use more electricity in the summer, mostly because of air conditioning, than you do in the other months. So when you're looking at the data, it's important to compare year over year. In other words, you want to compare May of one year to May of the previous year to see how it's changing. It's not the same thing as comparing April to May. We want to compare like seasons to like seasons. And so here we have the data. Across the top, we have different years, starting in this case in 2013, going through 2020. And again, we have the months. And on top, however, we have location. In other words, remember, this data is for both room 1, room 2, and room 3. So if we look at location, we're filtering by location. So we can, right now we're looking at all locations, as indicated up here. The filter is all. But say we only want to look at room 1. Okay. So we click that, and now we're only looking at room 1. This is the location, the data for only room 1, and we can select the other rooms individually as well. And as far as years go, we can select the years that we're interested in. Here we're selecting all the years, but say we just want to compare year 2020 to 2013, for example. So now we're only looking at 2 years for room 1. Now, down below, we have associated charts. On the left, we have the charts for usage data, and on the right, demand data. And so here you can see usage data year over year for the 2 years that we selected in the location filter. 2013 and 2020 is indicated here. So, and then this is just not year over year. This is across the months for 2 different years. Column usage. So we can see here that, for example, in the summer, the usage peaked. And then and this is controlled by the location filter. So if we change the location back to, and see here now, the top value is close to 5,000. If we go for all the rooms, it goes up to 12,000 in this case. So the charts are controlled by the filter. And on the right, we have similar charts for demand. Again, that second pivot table, demand, has its own filter. So that's how you can look at electricity. And now we just take one other look. We'll take a look at the water data. So here we're looking at the dashboard for the water data. And we can see here, let me just widen this a little bit, that we have more locations. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 locations. And these locations are Fire 1, Fire 2, Fire 3, Irrigation 1, Irrigation 2, and Domestic Water 1 and 2. And you'll see also that there is no demand pivot table or charts. That was really only for electricity. So what's interesting here is we have a similar pivot table and charts. Let me just click on the location. So let's say, for example, that we're only interested in the irrigation, or let's say that we're only interested in the fire. So we select Fire 1, but we can select multiple items by clicking this checkbox. So we can select Fire 2, Fire 3. So here we're actually grouping by the functional group, which is good. So we're not distracted by other items. And again, we can limit the number of years that we're looking at. We can select different years. Let's just say we look at 3 years to simplify the data. So this is a display of the fire usage data over from 2015, 16, and 17, and usage data year over year. So that gives us insight into that. Now so what we can do is it's good that we can group essentially on a functional unit like domestic water, fire, irrigation, and let's just take a look at irrigation. And we'll do it we're doing it for 2015, 16, and 17. Now you notice here that we've got a peak In the blue data is for 2015. So what does that mean? And we just look at 2015, for example. Well, yeah. It means that there was a leak, basically, or most likely there was a leak. So if you're entering data and you see a sudden jump, either compared to the previous month or the previous year, as shown here, it means that there most likely is a problem and requires investigation. That's why this data is so useful. We hope you enjoyed this demonstration, and let us know if you have any comments or questions. Thank you.